I just wanted to make sure that that you have the sense of what this view is like. It's greater than 180-degree view. No matter where you're looking, you have a pretty outstanding view, and the view of the lake, of course, is one of the best in the whole basin. So the plans for this lodge are completely up in the air. What you see in the plan was just a sketch that an architect did. He took Snowflake pretty literally in that sketch, but the reality is we would have a lot of outdoor deck space like we do now, and a much larger inside seating area that could facilitate a private event along with being open to the public. And that's really the crux of this, because we want to be able to, like it is set up right now, it'd be very difficult to have a wedding and be open to the public without really being intrusive to the wedding party. So we really want to make sure that we have that available when we do. Now, what we talked about is phasing. Even in phase one, we would operate it. The plan would be to operate this facility as is for 2 to 3 years at least. Upgrading, we have about $200,000 in the plan to upgrade the cooking facility, probably redo the decking a little bit, not this expanded, but the wooden deck, and then make sure the inside is all dialed in and cleaned up, and provide us a little bit better opportunity for a wider variety of menu items. Even the possibility of bringing the smoker up that we had on the deck, the lower deck, up to here and having that available for summer. So some real good, and that would be with a minimal investment to this. We'd have a chance to operate this for a few years, which would give us a really good indication of what the demand for this facility is, and thus the scope of what we would want to build after that. So I think it's a really good way to put our toe in the water without having to make a huge investment.
TRPA, we talked about 2 years for TRPA.
Well,
would that include
we're going to find that out probably in the next 30 days. Just how open the TRPA is to us using this facility for an ongoing activity in the summertime. Right now, our permit does not allow us to do that, and we'll find out how amenable they are to that. Brian?
Is that with the investment in this place before we do anything? Is that with getting us running through the BEV, or are we?
Yeah. Everything on this for this activity would be us running it, because that has the greatest return on the investment. We're not sharing that return with anybody, and that's really critical, particularly when we build the new buildings. The model doesn't work if we're not operating it.
Fred, have there been initial conversations with TRPA? I know that they just approved all the Heavenly plans.
They have seen at the master plan in an informal meeting.
Okay.
Kent and Mike and I went down, and we just sat down with them because we knew they'd hear about it.
Right.
And so we wanted to show it to them in person, not saying this is what it is, but saying this is the initial draft of a plan, and we'll get back to them when we have board approval, because that's what they want. They don't really want to talk to us about the whole plan until our board has said we approve this and go forward. So that's.
There's a lot of precedent of summer, operations, granted by TRPA, and especially since the Forest Service, basically came on board with special use permits, saying you could operate in the summer on their land.
Right.
Yeah, that's the big change. And as if you look on, for instance, if you look on the manufacturer of the mountain coasters, Weagland, if you look on their website, you only see 2 resorts in the West that currently have alpine coasters, and that's because they have them on private land, but no Western ski area has been able to put a mountain coaster on Forest Service land, because up until, about 3 months ago, it was illegal. So that whole complexion has changed now, and so Heavenly will be the first out of the box, along with Vail, to put mountain coasters on Forest Service land. So, any questions about this? And then we'll take a little stroll just to show you where the possibilities exist for the challenge course, or the aerial challenge course like we saw in the video.
Randy, did you say the current concession is he had his last year?
Yeah, the Brents currently operate the facility.
And they will next season, or?
If we don't make any changes, I don't anticipate any changes.
But once we expand it, then we're gonna take it in-house.
Then it starts to make sense for us.
We should know where our property lines are and things too, so.
Yeah, so the property line, the IFGID property line, Mike, you might want to explain it better than I am.
So a couple hundred feet down on this side over here to the left of the sea, there's a private property.
Private being like
Private.
US Forest or.
And then Duffield private property.
Oh.
And then coming over here to the right of sea, there's actually kind of a swath of IFGID property that goes all the way down to the treatment plant and the Sweetwater Road. And then to the right, several hundred feet down, then you leave IFGID private property and go back into Forest Service property, and that pretty much follows along the left-hand side of GS that goes all the way down to the Incline Creek down there, and then they have Incline Creek all the way to the road. And that line goes several hundred feet down, all the way up actually to the ridge line. So as you pass into Golden Eagle Bowl, then it moves a little bit farther that way as you leave Duffield, IFGID property, and then you have our special use permit area with the Forest Service. And that's on this side. So there is some IFGID land directly down below here, and then private over there below us, and then other government is in Forest Service down below us over here.
But Snowflake is all well within our property.
Yes. Several hundred feet.
Yes. And when was the deck built?
This deck was built in 1994.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Actually, in 1994, we approached the board with a bunch of conceptual drawings and engineering and costing for a new Snowflake Lodge, and the old one's still here.
So the next 2 years after that, we redid Lakeview and lodgepole lifts. Correct.
Yep. And then went into snowmaking master plan in '98. Snowmaking on the flume, and then the pump house with the new pumping facilities there, and then some upgrades.
When did the Crystal Ridge chair go?
Crystal Ridge, the original lift went in with the expansion for the design workshops master plan that was in '87. The first part of the plan was to remodel the lodge to do upstairs in 1986. The next phase of the plan was to add 352 acres served by the Crystal Quad lift, the fixed grip lift. And the next phase of the plan was going to be the skier services building, which was going to be adjacent to the lodge, kind of where our new building is, and has some walkways and rooftop access and parking lot access. But starting in 1987, it didn't snow for about 5 years, so we kind of redirected the plan, which is something kind of neat about a master plan. Is like, hopefully when we submit ours, or the one that you guys are working on now, if it has all the amenities and all the scope of projects in there, at least the whole plan can go, and then you don't necessarily have to do everything that's on the plan. So we had a pretty well-written plan on how we wanted to change lift systems and trail systems and buildings, but we didn't really get to them after several years. So when we did the Crystal Quad lift, then we were supposed to go back to the skier services building, but then we just kind of focused a lot of funding on snowmaking. We ran the lift going up to the top of the mountain for 14 days that year. After we built all those trails and that big lift in there, probably the biggest mountain expansion within the West for several years. And then we just, in 1988, we put snowmaking in because we just, on Crystal Ridge, because we just knew that was the thing to do. And then we started replacing pipe out Lower Mountain that was originally put in 1966 that wasn't the infrastructure was horrible. It was old invasion pipe and not very good, so we ran across on the Lower Mountain trail by trail each summer until we got that all fixed up. So it's kind of a good point, when you're talking about the master plan and stuff, it's good to make sure that we have everything in there that we could ever possibly want to do now as we submit to agencies for entitlements, because you don't have to do everything, but you want the TRPA, you want the Forest Service, you want the county and all the all the agencies to be able to see everything that you might ever want to do. I mean, I may not get the dates right, but I believe it was around 97, 98. Those were like the premier, the biggest years in Tahoe as far as population goes. And we all knew in ski resorts that we had heard, and we were probably addressing it at the time, maybe not at my level, but there was a saying that said that if the ski resort better have a master plan in with TRPA for anything that you want to do within the next 20 years, because that's going to be the cutoff. So if you tell us now in 1997, 98 what your mountain wants to look like in 20 years, because if it's not in by then, you're not going to do it. So that, of course, has changed with the whole advent of summer activities, and maybe the TRPA governed a little bit differently, and maybe the population going down, there's not enough building. We all saw what the building was like in the late 90s. And so,
is there any issue getting trucks up here, like concrete trucks, or is it?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, we've built lifts with cranes, and we've
So everything just drives up. Okay.
Yep. It's not the
A little bumpy.
easiest, but I mean, you know,
Mike, this foundation looks pretty substantial. Is any of this going to be salvageable for whatever happens up here?
It may, and you'll, even though when you do something like this and you approach the county, even though the snow doesn't land on it, you still need to accommodate a snow load at 7,400 feet of the loading per square inch of the decking material. So even though you have to build the same as if it was concrete, stairs or metal, what have you, so that's why you see so many piers. I think there's like 45 or 60 of them that we drilled in there and poured the concrete. So that's why you see so many of them, because even though that it's expanded metal and the snow falls through, you still have to build it per code of the snow load, whatever the pounds per inch it is for this elevation.
So let's to expedite things a little bit. We'll walk over towards the lift and we'll kind of point out. So what we're going to be talking about now is an aerial adventure course, not the canopy tour. That's going to be going off the top of Crystal, but this is what you saw in Grand Lebacan. Some short zip lines from platform to platform, some really cool hanging courses, some challenges with the ropes course, and going in the trees. And I think it's really important. You will see what Vail has put in, or what Heavenly's put in already, are these look like giant Tinker Toy sets for adults. It's not at all what we want to do. We want to stay close to the environment and have something that's very organic. So when we look at these different tree islands, you can envision how we could go with some minor tree thinning to go from tree to tree and have these different challenges, going all the way from probably kids over here with low level, low to the ground activities, all the way up to 40 or 50 feet high like you saw on the Grand Lebacan video. So let's walk around the corner, and it's really key. Nothing, the idea is to have nothing in the challenge course visible from the deck, because the deck is all about the view.